hey, is it a thing where people will just call you up, recruiters will call you up and just try and pump you for leads? And I was like, yeah, that is a thing.
So
I've
this was
noticed
a
it.
candidate, though, that was saying recruiters are reaching out to them and pumping them for leads for other candidates or for business development purposes?
For business development purposes.
Okay.
One of the things that I heard from an account manager, and once I heard that, I was like, I know agency recruiting is not for me. He said, if you want better recs, get better leads. Okay.
Welcome back to another edition of Recruiter Fuel. If you haven't joined us before, this is where we have recruiting experts on as guests, and we talk about topics that maybe other places aren't going to talk about. Maybe we get into a little bit of a debate. We have some varying opinions, and this might be one of those where we have a little bit of a different opinion on a topic. But Izabela and Hanna, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So you sent out an email some time ago about recruiters who call candidates or potential candidates, and as you put it, start pumping them for referrals right away. Tell me how this got started.
So I noticed that was a thing when I just got into recruiting. It was expected. Both the last places I worked at before, we were expected to find a lead every day, and they expected us to do that they said, you're having conversations with candidates, you should be asking them where else they're interviewing and digging deep with them to find out information that our sales team can then take to market. And that was a big thing. And then I also was getting messages on LinkedIn from candidates that were like, hey, is it a thing where people will just call you up, recruiters will call you up and just try and pump you for leads? And I was like, yeah, that is a thing.
So
I've
this was
noticed
a
it.
candidate, though, that was saying recruiters are reaching out to them and pumping them for leads for other candidates or for business development purposes?
For business development purposes.
Okay.
So yes, I had seen it, and then as I had a gentleman reach out to me on LinkedIn and just ask me, hey, I've been getting a lot of calls from recruiters. They don't have positions for me, but they keep asking me where I'm interviewing and who I'm interviewing with. Do recruiters call people just to pump them for sales leads? And I was like, they do. That's the truth.
And that's what you were taught to do.
That's what I was taught to do.
You've been in the space a long time, Bella, as well.
It's been a while.
What's been your experience with pumping names or people for leads for business development purposes?
It creates the tension between sales people and recruiters. You're a successful business person, Steve. You know where the healthy leads are coming from, right? They come from marketing. They come from all the content we are putting out there into the world, informing people about the services and the products that we are selling. They don't come from recruiters. It's going to create a vicious cycle. If a company is lacking marketing department because of lack of money, or they just don't see the value, they delegate that role to recruiters. It's a lazy and a very easy thing to do because they're exposed to information. But are we talking about quality or are we talking about quantity?
So let me take a different approach to this. I've been doing this a long time.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is my 25th year in actually doing this. And I would say 99% of my personal business comes from candidates that I've spoken with.
Okay.
So am I one of these slimy recruiters who's pumping my candidates to get business out of them?
It depends on your approach.
What does that mean?
If you are spending time with these potential candidates or not on the phone to understand them, their interests, what they're looking for, and then so you can potentially provide value to them in the future, then yeah, I think it's okay to ask for something. But for what I see out there is a lot of recruiters, hey, do you have this X, Y, and Z skill? No, okay, well then who else are you interviewing for? And it's like, well, what? You've provided zero value to that person. Why would you expect them to provide value to you in return? So I think it's just a little give and take. So if they're not going to be a right fit for my role, but I want to ask them for leads, I feel like I should at least take the time to understand them, what they're looking for, and their motivations.
So Bella, if I'm a contingent recruiter though, and you guys come from this space, you have some of this experience, I make my money by making placements. Now, I don't do that. You guys don't do that anymore. But that's how recruiters get paid. Mm-hmm. You got to get a lead from wherever. You're kind of working both sides of the house, right? Why is that such a bad thing if that's what my money depends on? I got to support my family. You got a bunch of contingent recruiters, I guarantee you are watching this and saying, you guys are crazy. That's what I got to do in order to put food on the table.
So what's going on with the marketing? Where's the marketing doing? I mean, that's the question I want to ask first. But It is okay to have a little lead here or there based on a conversation. And hey, there's a great company, why don't you follow up with them or follow up with that candidate? It's okay. But if recruiters are metric driven and they are being held accountable every day or per week for leads they provide, that the priorities are changing, I think. They are having that pressure. Oh my gosh, it's Friday. I need to provide the leads. Okay, what I'm going to do? Who do I talk to? Okay, well, maybe I can just on Google and just find out who is recruiting, and I'll just put in the system. Right?
So I filled my metric for finding actual leads.
Exactly. And who suffers? Sales.
Everyone.
All right, sales. I'm like, okay, what did you bring it to me? What is it? What kind of, do they really hire? Oh no, I was just driving and saw they are hiring, so I put in a system. That's what's happening. Fabrication of information. Is it quality or quantity?
So it's not necessarily bad though. If I see somebody's hiring, it's not necessarily bad for me to put that in as a lead and follow up with them, is it? I mean, from a sales perspective, that's what you want. If I know company A right down the street or across the street from our office right here is hiring, what's the harm of putting it in the system so a salesperson actually follows up on it?
Yeah, but they are getting a lot of phone calls because this is the purpose. They put the sign out for people to apply.
Right.
They don't want to have another plumber knocking at the door and say, do you have a leak? Do you have a leak? Can I fix your leak? No, you don't want, I don't want you because I have my own plumber, okay? That's the situation, you know what I mean? So if you have a recruiters with the pressure of bringing the leads, it's a totally different system. It's a vicious cycle, and it's gonna hunt you back, and you're gonna get a crappy leads, quantity of a quality, or maybe quality of a quantity. You gotta be very careful.
Go ahead, Hanna. You're dying to say something, and then I got a comment on this.
So the thing is there is so many, you're going to see so many signs and all these things about people are hiring because that's what the market is. It's a hot market right now.
Sure.
So you're going to see those everywhere. But what it comes down to is that the type of business we want? Or do they fit our model? And we don't really know that if all we did was see a sign on a random building that we don't know. So to me, that's not really quality information. I would feel like a salesperson would rather have, instead of 5 of those type of leads that I provide them, hey, this company right now, they have a need for this position. Here's the hiring manager's name. They're looking for this.
So is the issue really that the recruiter is finding leads, or is it that they're taking advantage of a potential candidate that they don't spend any time with just to get the lead? So because even in our shop, if you're a recruiter here, right? So if one of the candidates you spoke with said, "Hey, Hanna, thanks for reaching out to me. We spent some time. It's not the right fit, but I know we're hiring." That's a lead.
Yes.
Is that a bad thing to do, to turn that over?
No.
Because we get a lot of our business that way.
No, that is a good lead.
So it's really about the recruiter being selfish and not spending time with the candidate, and the candidate feeling like they're being taken advantage of.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
really the context to this.
100%.
Because I still like the idea of getting leads from my candidates because I do it all the time. I mean, it's kind of my referral business after 20 years, 25 years of doing this, right?
Yeah, and I've dabbled in sales a little bit, so I see the value there. And actually, I would say when I was in sales, the best clients came from referrals. So I think that is good, but I just don't think right now the approach or the method that recruiters use to get those leads is right.
So it's kind of the same issue of, and I know in many organizations, the salespeople, for example, have to put so many leads into the system every week so that they're putting crappy leads in there. It's kind of the same mentality. So if the metric that you're measuring is only how many leads did I drive, that's what you're going to get, versus how many quality closes did I actually get. So you're actually getting what you're measuring is kind of what you're saying, which is in this case, because it's a recruiter, it's pissing off the candidate, potentially.
Pretty much.
And my friends in contingent recruiting, I hate your model. I understand why you do it. I completely get it. But this is another one of those signs of what's potentially wrong with contingent recruiting.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it's wrong for a recruiter to ask for a lead if they're spending the right amount of time.
Absolutely.
That is correct.
And when I do spend the time with people, a lot of times they're more than willing to
They're
give up
offered
that
up to you.
information. But I've never just had like, oh, I'm not interested, and then they were just like, but I know someone. You have to give them the time. That's just my issue is they'll just call them right away, disqualify them for the role they're on, never bother to learn anything else about
and hey,
that
how
candidate.
can you help me?
And how can you help me? And there's probably a chance I'll never work with you again in the future, just because that's the nature of contingency recruiting.
So this is what I hear from some candidates. It's not along the business development lines, but it's kind of. So if I'm the recruiter and I call you, Bella, and you're not the right fit, and I turn around right away and I say, well, who are the 3 people that you know for this job? I spent no time to get to know you or anything. I do get some pushback on that if you go in too fast. But if I spend some time to actually get to know you, you're not the right fit. I keep you in mind. Now it's a matter of asking, I've given you something to get something.
Exactly.
And that I see a lot, unfortunately. And I get a lot of complaints from candidates on that particular item. So it's a similar issue to what you're talking about. But I mean, is it more prevalent, do you think, in contingent versus any other type of recruiting?
Absolutely.
Because that's what they're driving.
Yeah, like Bella said, it's all metric or KPI driven. The last 2 places I worked at, which were contingent agencies, we had to bring a sales lead every single day to the board.
Really? Did you experience that? I know you weren't recruiting, but you were on the sales side. Was that the same kind of requirement?
Well, it's not my role to judge the business, but it was every week. Our recruiters were supposed to bring leads, and they were questionable, very, very questionable. So, and then we are supposed to follow up.
Of course.
People need to follow up. They need to bring the lead, bring the account. If you bring an account, it's a crappy account. It all kind of comes back to our recruiters, and they need to deliver it. I'm like, wait, you want me to bring account? Here we go, take it. Here we go. This is yours.
Well, there's problems inherent with some of the models, whether it's recruiting, whether it's sales. It really doesn't make a difference. If the model is such that it only works if you bring in crappy leads, then it only works. And unfortunately, the candidate experience is the thing that's suffering right now. I think that's probably what set you off in the beginning, based on the comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that in contingency recruiting, a lot of account managers or business development managers are lazy and don't want to spend the time to hit the phone, hit the road, pull the doors, because they're going to be relying on the recruiters to bring them the leads. And I'm like, that's not my job. And so they'll always put it back. And one of the things that I heard from an account manager, and once I heard that, I was like, I know agency recruiting is not for me. He said, if you want better recs, get better leads. Okay.
So that's, I mean, I don't want to do a sales pitch for us, but ultimately, that's why recruiters recruit here, salespeople sell here,
Exactly.
account managers manage to take care of the client, because it drives a different type of behavior. So we spend a lot of time with people like you, recruiters here, to make sure you recruit the right way, to give the right candidate experience, to uncover the right information. Whereas on the solution side, it's about really understanding the candidate need or the client need for the right reason and kind of matching those two up. So your roles are split. All completely.
Definitely.
So we don't muddle the water. Now, not everybody watching is going to agree with that, especially if you're coming out of the contingent world, but it's a great discussion. I hope all of you who are looking at this, even if you don't like this discussion, you comment below. We open up the dialogue, and I'm glad that you guys were willing to have a conversation about this stuff.
Absolutely. I think this is an important topic.
And I didn't think about it until you actually brought it up. But after you guys brought it up, I actually did some Googling online about it. There are a ton of complaints from candidates about exactly what you talked about. I just never had it brought to my attention in the way in which you guys brought it.
Well, you got to remember, recruiters, metric-driven, they will develop a survival instinct after 5-6 weeks, which means for the first 2 weeks, yes, they will just bring some quality leads. But then when they kind of fall behind the job and then all the requirements and all the demands that they have, they're like, shoot, I need to put those leads. I better figure out where they're coming from. So they are developing the survival instinct. And then they are trying, that's going to be on my assessment. This is how I'm going to get promotion. I better
That's how I'm going to get paid.
Here we go. And might be just let go. So you got to be very careful. And, it usually happens when a company doesn't have a strong marketing team. And then they just basically delegate all this job to recruiters. And I truly believe we live and we work in 2019. This is not 1987. Sophisticated decision makers, they gather information from the internet about your business. So if you have a strong website and social media appearance, different channels, That's how you're trying to communicate and inform people about the business, not through the recruiters. If somebody wants to do the business with you, they will find you and they will learn through your website. And our website rocks. So come and visit. Right? Don't you think? That's why you put so much attention towards marketing, because it's important.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, to your point, we've got to leverage all the tools that we have. I think that's a great topic for another conversation. But this one in particular, in what recruiters are doing or not doing with candidates, especially those that are on the contingent side. So look, if you guys are ticked off about the conversation, make sure you comment below. I want to get some alternate opinions on this, especially if you spent a long time on the contingent side. What's happening is there's a lot of questions coming up about the value of contingent recruiting. You guys are doing well. There's some really great contingent recruiters out there, but I'm getting a ton of pushback. We don't do it, but I'm getting a ton of pushback from clients that are saying contingent recruiting will be dead in the next couple of years. Interested to hear your thoughts. That's not my opinion. That's coming from other people. Join us again for the next Recruiter Fuel Live. Bella, Hanna, thank you for joining me. See you guys in a week.